Just give me a...
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Good Anime Palette Podcast. This is episode number 111. I am your co-host, Jason. Joining me after a long seasonal kind of review, well, kind of in the short side, is Will. We're having a long day today because of the typhoon for people who are doing inside baseball. How are you doing, Will?
Yeah, this typhoon fucking sucks.
Yeah, it does. Hell yeah, it does.
If anyone knows what a typhoon is, then I mean, just to explain it to maybe American listeners or listeners who have different terms for such weather storms, it's essentially a hurricane, and it's the highest category of hurricane that we have. Not like, you know, FEMA level, like we need to call the National Guard and save people. Luckily, Hong Kong's infrastructure is more than adequate to deal with such, you know, weather phenomena, but it also just means that we can't go outdoors. So this being a Sunday, it does ruin a lot of our plans. It would have been nice to do this face to face and have this typhoon hit tomorrow instead, so we would have a day off work. Though I do know that you know, ever since COVID and, you know, having been adapted to working from home, I know a lot of my tech buddies don't really care. Even finance bros also don't really care whether or not there is a typhoon, because it just means, well, you can still trade markets from home. You can
and
still,
24 hours
you know,
now, right? For trading?
Yeah, Hong Kong made a new rule where even during adverse weather conditions, the markets won't close. So it doesn't matter for most people. Luckily for me, because of the fact that I deal with sensitive information for my job, it does mean that, like, remote connecting through my own personal computer to our work servers is very much discouraged, just in case there are any, you know, sensitive leaks and whatnot. So I would technically still not be able to work from home. Not to say I wouldn't, you know, but it'd be nice to have one day off of work that's not down to me being sick or having to use any vacation leave.
Yeah, because for those, again, another inside baseball, so there is public holidays in Hong Kong, but I think during this drought, essentially, of I think after July 1st, we don't have any public holidays until, like, October. September, yeah. Like Mid-Autumn Festival, right? So
it's either Qingming is in April. Mid-Autumn.
Yeah.
Mid-Autumn Festival. Oh wait, Mid-Autumn is not until
I thought it was
not until the end of September.
Yeah.
So it's even longer.
Yeah, so Jesus Christ, guys! But that's our problem.
We're also
to solve,
complaining about we're just complaining about not having a public holiday, when really, like, compared to the rest of the world, Hong Kong actually has a lot of public holidays. Because we merged both the Chinese calendar as well as at the time the British calendar. So we're one of the few countries that has both Chinese New Year as well as Easter. So the first 4 to 5 months of the year is just stacked with a lot of red days, which are public holidays.
super chilled. So
That's why, like, anything before May and after September is just stacked with holidays, because, you know, we have things like Easter, Christmas, New Year's, Chinese New Year, Buddha's birthday,
and then Qingming,
Hong
right?
Kong, Qingming, Mid-Autumn, all that. So we really shouldn't complain. I'm just complaining because it just means I'm stuck indoors for like 24 hours.
Yeah, well,
we've had a lot of practice with that during COVID.
Yeah,
you know?
we did, and so for again, we are recording remotely. So when we are trying to talk to one another, there might be a little bit of lag or delay, or we might talk over each other just because we're not, you know, face to face, so we can't really figure out who starts and who ends. So
yeah, we have no visual cues whatsoever. We're just, well, I mean, we've also been doing this for almost 5 years, so we're more than capable of being able to roll the dice and just
roll with it,
do things as normal. Yeah. So, all right, as you might have seen from the title of this episode, we are doing another anime, Iceberg. But just as I've taken over the first two, Jason will now be rolling with essentially the previous one and this one. So I believe from the looks of it, it's a continuation of like the theme that you introduced in the last Iceberg. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I kind of dubbed it the quad T's, the terms, tropes, types, and tags of anime and manga.
Smart.
That last Iceberg was pretty popular, so I'm glad that everyone kind of got a kick out of that. And I had a lot of leftovers, not because they were necessarily bad, but because
we just didn't want the last. We just didn't want the last episode to run for like 4 to 5 hours.
Yeah,
which we easily could have if you decided to. I mean, like with any Iceberg, like I also had to shelve a lot of my ones just because like when we were doing the dark descent into fucked up shit in anime and manga, I was like, man, there's crazy amounts of scandals and horrific shit that's happened in the world of anime. So I needed to make an executive decision and just not put everything on there. Otherwise, as much as we like to record, I also don't think people want to listen straight for like 4 to 5 hours, just, going into some mad shit. But yeah, no, it's good that you split it up so that this time it's a continuation of the terms and the tropes and stuff that you didn't manage to cover the first time round.
Yeah, and believe me, Will, there are some fucked up stuff for everyone to enjoy. So we split it.
We're starting at level 1, so how fucked up can you really start?
Just the chill stuff. So layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4. As it gets deeper, shit gets crazier, and we're just gonna go and jump around to different topics. Just again, types, tropes, tags, and terms. And let's start with probably the most well-known term that people throw around all the time, which is simulcast, simulpub, and simuldub. So I think one of the things that anime, it's not necessarily unique because like on Netflix and all these other streaming platforms, they have dubs, they have subs, but when I first heard simulcast, simulpub, simuldub, it's always in the context of anime and manga. Now, simulcast is simultaneous casting, simulpub is simultaneous publishing, and simuldub is simultaneous dubbing. So what does that mean when it is simultaneous? Because you're watching something, does it like AI figure shit out and you just like get to hear a dub, or you get to hear a sub, or not hear, you watch a subtitle? So
yeah, no, it's not as like straightforward as as soon as it hits Japanese broadcast, it means that the rest of the world is also watching it at the same time in real time. No, it's more just the fact that as soon as it is released in Japan, it also means that all other available services would also have access to said media. So you essentially wait for Japan to release first episode of whatever season of whatever anime, and you'll more than likely be able to watch it on Netflix, on Crunchyroll, on Hulu, Disney Plus, whatever service is also getting simulcast. Now, this is, as far as I know, it's not necessarily the most unique of things, but you don't necessarily see this in, I suppose, like Western media. And by Western media, I mean like America and Hollywood, or just American TV in general. Because like American TV, a lot of TV shows they have, it's either like run on like cable TV, so stuff like your daytime dramas, your
soap operas,
your soap operas and stuff like that. Those don't necessarily get streamed at the same time on whatever platforms, though there are so many now. There's like Peacock, there's Paramount, there's HBO Max, there's Disney Plus, so many different streaming services. So there are chances that said show would also be streaming at the same time. But I think because within the context of anime and in Japan, it's because of the fact that Japan, the Japanese anime market is, I wouldn't say quite like sheltered. They definitely want to sort of keep stuff within the walls and the confines of Japan, just because it's their pride, their bread, their butter. It's the biggest export for the country. So being able to sort of secure these licenses and agreements with streaming services to be able to simulcast their media, it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, and the thing is, right, you also have to take into consideration the time zone. So, for example, in Japan, right, whenever they say they release it like 11 p.m. on a Friday, but then that doesn't mean it's 11 p.m. on a Friday in your time zone. So that's why, like, for example, I think Crunchyroll released stuff on Pacific time, and then it's like 3 p.m. somewhere here in Hong Kong, and then you get the thing that's supposed to come out at midnight.
Yeah, that's why it's very important whenever, like, say for example, Anime News Network, and they talk about when certain shows are going to be debuting or airing. They don't just say which date and which source. So it's like not like, oh, is it going to be on Abema TV or Nippon TV, or is it going to be on Crunchyroll? Whatnot. No, it's like they also make sure to include the specific time along with the time zone it'll be releasing, because it's very important for people, especially when a new season rolls through and people are clamming to watch the next episode of whatever anime that they're getting onto. So it's a small detail, but it's a very important detail.
Yep. Now, we mainly Will and I were focusing on simulcast, but simulpub, simultaneous publishing, is essentially the same thing, but it's releasing either chapters of a manga or sometimes the volume of the manga. Usually it's per chapter, because that's when it comes out on like Shonen Jump or on K-Manga and all those kinds of online platforms. It's the same logic. Same thing with, I think, J-Novel Club with light novels and stuff like that. It's the exact same thing. I do think, though, something that is a little bit more intense in terms of production is simultaneous dubbing.
Well, but before we get into dubbing, simulpub itself is also like it's generally quite impressive, because of the fact that once a chapter of a manga is published and released, more often than not even more often than 100%, it's going to be in its original language, which is Japanese. So when you say simulpub and you're using Manga Plus, Jump Plus, you'll find that you're also reading it not in Japanese but in English, which means that there are editors and translators working real time and matching up the release of these manga volumes or chapters in a multitude of different languages. So that in my mind is one, super intense, as you aforementioned, but also pretty impressive, meaning that people aren't left behind and waiting. Oh, let's wait and see what happens a week or two later once the English or the Spanish or the French version comes out. No, it's same day delivery.
Yeah,
which is nuts. But that then leads into the simul dub, which is even more impressive.
Yeah, because voice actors are involved. So it always reminds me of two specific things. One, obviously, from an anime, but the other one is from a friend of yours that I don't know her name, but she used to do subbing for Netflix, right? In Sweden.
No, not dubbing. She didn't do dubbing. She did subbing.
So I just remember like you talking about how intense those schedule was. And then the other thing that always comes to mind is, I think in the first or second episode of Shirobako, where they have to hurry and do basically initial D stuff in order to get the broadcast tape all the way to the TV station. And it just reminds me of all of the things that have to happen in sequence and in place, and everyone doing their thing on time to get it on time for all the consumers. So it's kind of crazy,
There is an impressive level of coordination at just following the chain of command with regards to media production, right? It's not necessarily just anime and manga, but we're also just talking about like live TV or just live action stuff in general. It's not so straightforward as, oh, once we've recorded everything, let's just set a release date and then boom, have everybody watch stuff. No, it's also thinking about, okay, which markets do our consumers live in, which agreements do we have? Okay, if we have this agreement here, that means we need to not just have the original language, but it also needs to be having these subtitles, and then on top of that, we also have an agreement in terms of having dubs too, so they can also not just have text, but also have voice in their translated language. So there's a lot of coordination that goes into making sure that these simultaneous releases happen on the day of release.
Yeah, and just to round out on dubbing is, in the past, right, and actually still the case, you usually get the dubbing either halfway through the season or after the season is over, which makes a lot of sense because then you get time to actually have voice actors dub the anime or to clean up some of the maybe some of the scripts or whatnot. But now, for example, I remember Summertime Render, for example, had simuldub on Disney Plus, and to me, that is just one of the luxuries of modern era that you couldn't have possibly gotten, like, I would say, like half a decade ago, even.
I mean, it does beg the question, though, in terms of what really what really goes on behind the scenes. Because as much as we can, as a consumer, enjoy these luxuries, it's also thinking about how much work and time is put into these productions by the staff, by the voice actors and actresses. Which means I think that there's definitely a lot of crunch time. And we've reported enough about how studios definitely bear down on employees and trying to get things done and out the door within a very limited time frame. So I can imagine that one small hitch and it just fucks up their scheduling, or people are just all hands on deck 24/7 just to make sure one episode of anime comes up. So the amount of work that leads up to the release of a 24-minute episode of anime is insane. And I do not envy anybody that's in those industries. And we thank you for your service.
Yep. Thank you for your service. Speaking of anime productions, as Will mentioned, there's a lot of intricate and moving parts. And the things that we always hear is voice actors, voice actresses, the person who makes the music, maybe even the script. But there's always one role that I think is especially important in anime that, again, you might see in other mediums, but it's not highlighted as much or not highlighted enough in here, which is the storyboarder, which is about is an anime production position. You probably hear it, I think, either second or third after the script. So usually when they come for credits, it is the director, maybe a producer, the scriptwriter, and then the storyboarder is either before the scriptwriter or right after. So that is the level of importance that they place. So a storyboarder, also known as a storyboard artist, essentially translates the script and the director's vision into a series of visual panels. So it's kind of like, imagine, if you will, almost like a manga piece, except it's almost like concept art. Would you say, Will, like it's concept art in a way?
Kind of, yeah.
So, yeah.
No, go on.
Yep. So what it does is it acts as a blueprint for the animator, so they kind of see essentially all the in-between panels, so then they kind of tie the animation together. And the panels outline the shots and ensure continuity, and it basically forms the basis for the final product that you see. And the responsibilities is actually quite insane when you think about it, even though the output, you might say, is just like a picture, because they have to translate the script, so then they have to understand how things work. They also have to do, like, essentially camera angles. They also have to do character expressions and other visual cues that needs to be highlighted, but you cannot see that from the script because obviously maybe it's in brackets or they talk to the creator or the writer. And then on the other hand, you also have to balance the director's vision, because the director is probably going to have a certain way of doing things, a certain style, and I want the Sakuga moments to be here. I want essentially a crescendo moment here. And then they basically have to translate words, translate ideas into a reality in the language of storyboarding. And the other thing also is, I mentioned they do the in-between scenes, right? So you have to ensure smooth transition so that each, I guess, shot or panel is well composed, visually compelling, and creates a visual roadmap for all of the animators to follow to understand how it goes. Because I don't think a lot of people either read the script, like animators read the script, or they read a lot of it because they don't have enough time, to be honest, and it's not, I would say, their responsibility. And if I'm wrong, I apologize, but I'm just assuming that as an animator, you're more worried about the drawing than you are about the script. And
I suppose in a way, though, like, you, as an animator, you would like to know how the flow of the story would go. So it's not to say that there is no importance. It's definitely important. But I understand, of course, as an animator, as a visual artist, you probably first and foremost want to make sure that your product looks good, regardless of how the story goes. But yeah, in terms of like storyboarding, I'd say it's like basically telling the story about the story.
Yeah.
How do you start from point A to point B and connect everything together? Like if you start in a small little sort of, sorry, excuse me, start in a small apartment, tatami floors, traditional Japanese accoutrements in terms of how an apartment looks like, but you end in a citywide destruction, like hell on earth, there's a war going on. How do you connect point A to point B in between without losing the plot, without things just kind of going haywire? Well, you need to have the storyboarder in place to let you know, okay, so in order to transition from this scene to that scene, these characters need to be consistent. This character needs to be wearing certain clothes, certain colors. They need to be able to make sure that the way that they ended part A of the story and part B begins, where the transition goes in terms of like, does this voice actor or actress need to change their tone, change the way that they deliver lines? Does the pacing need to pick up here, or does it need to slow down there? It's very, very, again, like minute details that, like you mentioned as well, a consumer wouldn't really care or notice because you're still watching the same 24 minutes for any episode of any manga or for any anime. But behind the scenes, a storyboard needs to make sure that whatever is being delivered on the screen and being matched with, the presentation of characters, the voice acting and whatnot, all those things need to be matched up and explained before you can actually go ahead and say, all right, hit the record button, deliver your lines. Or, okay, now piece together this visual with that visual and let's get the ball rolling.
Yeah, I think an analogy that I would give is the director is like the dreamer, right? The one who has a vision, and the storyboarder is the doer, the producer, who essentially,
or the realist.
The realist.
Is it possible to do what your vision is? And if you can't, what substitutes do we have, or what alternative methods can you have to be able to achieve this vision?
Yeah, and I think that is why a lot of storyboarders ends up being directors or ends up being like a secondary director, because that role is so integral to anime production and you kind of know everything in the grand scale, that transitioning to the director role or even staying as storyboarders is just a natural way of doing things. So I have a lot of respect for storyboarders, but the thing is, I actually don't know a lot of storyboarders unless if they turn into directors, which is why I want to highlight that role here, because it's a very important role, but it's kind of, a little bit unknown, if you will, right?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, that's just how things are, right? Like if you were to say, for example, you move away from media and let's say sports, right? If we talk about sports, the people within any franchise, sports franchise that you would first know of are the players themselves, the coach or the manager of the team, and the owner. Right, those are I guess like the general faces, the people you recognize of any sports franchise. But you don't talk about like the medical team, the physio team that are behind the scenes, the people who are working in terms of scheduling practices and scheduling games and whatnot. Like you generally don't know who those people are,
or even the chef, which in sports is like a very big deal with nutritionists.
Dude, I've watched so many of those, like how to feed an NFL team, how to feed a NHL team, and it's like just the amount of planning that goes into it. Like for example, like this is a massive aside, but in terms of like anytime a NFL team is preparing and practicing for games that are not within their city, right? They have to travel. They have to travel to a different state. They have to bring a shit ton of equipment because they can't just use whatever is available in said city. They need to make sure that their players are well fed. They have the right hydrations. They have the right kits and whatnot. And it gets even more insane when you factor in that NFL teams sometimes will not just play games within the United States, but also play in London or play in Mexico City. So how do you bring all that food, all the gear, all the technical stuff with you? And then it's just like they start breaking it down. It's like, okay, so the first plane brings the players, the second plane brings all the gear, the third plane brings all the food and also the equipment we need to use to cook said food. I'm like, what the fuck? You can't just like use whatever pans and pots that whatever facility you're at. No, they have to bring their own specialized equipment. It's the same thing within storyboarding here, within like the production of anime and manga. It's not just, okay, hit the record button, deliver your lines, go. It's also which studio is responsible for handling all the voice acting talent, which one is responsible for doing all the post processing, and then once you get the audio file itself, how do you match it with what's happening on screen, and what happens when you actually have a misstep or like a mishap. Oh, that line was not delivered at the same timing as this. Like, so what comes first? What comes next? All that is planned behind the scenes, and you never see full appreciation for it. Whether or not they deserve that appreciation, that's up to whoever wants to divvy out the level of appreciation. I respect the process. I know how tough it is to be able to get a finished product for anything, particularly in this case, anime and manga. And so, as much as they kind of go under the radar, I wouldn't say they're underappreciated just because like it's I don't want to have to say that like, oh, there should be more appreciation for so and so. Like, that's kind of a given. Everybody who works on these big products, these big projects, deserve to have the accolades and adulations as anybody else too. But unfortunately, you kind of care about more the voice acting performance, the way an anime looks. So it's always like, oh, that studio did great fighting scenes, or this was a very good voice acting performance by so and so voice actor or actress. But you never really hear anybody say, man, this story was really put together very, very well. I want to show my appreciation for the story. Like, no, like, that usually doesn't happen.
Or at least very much, it has, the way that I would describe it also is, if it is good, as in there is no problem, that everything happens the way it should be, it is seamless, right? Like, it doesn't ring any alarm bells. It is not necessarily craving for attention, because when you do your job well as a storyboarder, it means that there are no problems.
Yes.
So you
exactly,
know what I mean?
Yeah.
The attention is not there, basically.
But yeah, if you don't notice anything, that means my job is done.
Yeah. So going all the way from anime production, we are now going to go into our last entry for the tip, which is about fashion. Now, I know it's a little bit disjointed from storyboarders, but hey, this is the quad T's. We kind of jump from thing to thing. So the topic of this is gyarus. So I am sure you listeners have seen tons of animes where this phenomenon and this fashion identity exists. So just
it's not just within anime and manga.
Hell
There's
no.
other forms, but we're not going to go into that. That's not the type of podcast we want to do.
Yeah, but it is a very big subculture with like a long history in Japanese fashion, and it apparently peaked in the 1990s according to Wikipedia, and has actually existed in different forms since 1968. But the way that I always remember it is they are essentially slightly, you can tell by a slightly tanned or sometimes even a very rebellious type of wearing your school uniform. Because, I mean, take the very typical trope of like the people that wait in like the school grounds before people go in.
They're the ones who make sure that everybody's uniform is like, okay, the skirt has to be so and so like amount of this space from the knees or below the knees. Your hair has to be a certain way. You can't have like excessive jewelry. You also can't have like tattoos or whatnot. I mean, generally, like if you're in high school and you have tattoos showing, that's already a pretty big red flag.
I mean, Horimiya, right? That was one of the big issues. But imagine.
So essentially, this whole introduction of the gyaru subculture is counterculture. Mm-hmm. It's going against the rules and regulations that dictate how a student or how a person needs to sort of conform to society. No longer are we going to be bound by how long our skirts are. We're going to wear them as short as we want. Oh, you can only have straight black hair? Well, I'm going to curl it up and have it super long, and also bleach it and turn it blonde or brunette. I'm going to have loads of earrings on one side and loads of earrings on the other. I might even have a tattoo that shows them and whatnot. Oh, wearing flats at school? I'm going to wear heels instead. So it's just essentially just breaking the monotony of having to follow strict guidelines on how one presents themselves in the eyes of society.
Yeah. And also, I need to highlight another thing is nails, right? Usually
Yes.
Yeah. So, for example, in my Dress Up Darling, Marin basically is your typical gyaru. And again, it is not fair to make certain cliches and stereotypes about gyarus, but this is anime that we're talking about, so there are of course archetypes, and the gyaru, as we mentioned.
Oh, and I also forget as well. I forgot.
Yeah,
it's
go.
not it's not just like pure like pale white skin, right? The whole idea that white skin is beauty and whatnot, and therefore like we should strive to have like fair skin and whatnot. Well, gyarus decide, you know what, fuck that. We're gonna go to a tanning salon and just have bronzed skin.
Do you think it's kind of influenced by Western culture?
I mean, there's definitely like some influence from outside cultures, but generally, I think it's just youth at the time thinking about what ways they can sort of fight the system and do things their way. So I wouldn't say that like, oh, because like like it's definitely influenced by Americans or Europeans or whatnot. No, I think it's more just what would be different from what is conformist and what is standard within Japanese culture. So I wouldn't doubt that there might be, an individual that looks at, the way that an American, or not, I mean, to say like a typical American student is also kind of like not the right thing.
Yeah,
because
like,
even then, that particular way of dress, that particular way of style is still kind of counterculture as well. Like you wouldn't see a standard American or European or just Western student doing the whole, highlights of the hair, doing curls and wearing long nails and whatnot. That's still definitely somewhat like a bit counterculture. But I guess they would sort of borrow those kinds of, aspects of counterculture and sort of implement their own style within, this gyaru subculture.
Right. Now, because there's a counter subculture, I mentioned earlier that there are stereotypes and cliches of gyarus, and essentially they are viewed usually in anime, manga, and all these mediums as rebels and delinquents, right? Because they are not following the protocols, they're not following the rules, and as you know, in Japan, it's all about the rules and respect. But they are like, hey, or like the way that they talk is very, very casual instead of the polite form of Japanese, where you talk to your elders or your superiors. They just kind of, in a way, don't give a fuck, and that also leads into this rebellious delinquents and sometimes a little bit of an airhead and bimbo. Now, does that mean that is the case? I mean, I think Marin is a very good example of someone that has all of some of these traits, yet is also very likable, is not a delinquent or a rebel, and just likes to cosplay the fuck out of things. And unfortunately, though, in terms of Japanese culture, gyarus have this kind of connotation and this identity. And I don't know how true that is because I never grew up in a school in Japan, but at least I've seen enough anime to know that that is at least an archetype. What do you think, Will?
Yeah. Well, the gyaru subculture itself has kind of died down a bit. I mean, it definitely had its heyday in like the Heisei era. So essentially the late 80s, like the late 80s, like 1989 all the way through to like the 2010s. It's kind of died down a bit, but part of it is because the Ministry of Affairs in Japan, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, actually, kind of came out with a new subculture within gyaru called kogyaru. Kogyaru meaning young woman, and essentially it's a bit toned down from the gyaru subculture in that you do still have like the short skirts, but it's like, imagine like typical Japanese schoolgirl, but those really long knee-high socks, very short skirts. That's a kind of culture now that the Japanese foreign ministry is kind of perpetuating and making a bit more sort of normal, more normalized. So there's still like some existence of the gyaru culture, just in a bit more sanitized version that the government felt that was more appropriate. But that in itself still has a lot of controversy, simply because why is the government all of a sudden like getting involved with how young women, specifically like high school aged women, these are women that still, like, by the eyes of Japanese law, cannot buy alcohol. So why are you dictating the way that they should style themselves, and especially like marketing like short skirts or knee-high socks, which gives certain connotations that I don't necessarily want to go into because it's very problematic.
Yeah. All right. So that wraps up our layer 1, the tip, and now let's get into the surface, layer 2. Now, when I was trying to find like kind of an equivalent term, I went with obviously the term that you will hear all the time, and listeners might hear tankobon, right? And that is essentially a term for a volume of manga. Now, what I also found out was another 2 terms called shinsho and bunkoban. And I would just like to go into each of these and then we can talk about it. So tankobon, which is the term, generally refers to a book that is like, finite and complete in of itself. Is not part of a larger series, but in the manga world, it refers to a collection of serialized chapters, often containing a handful of chapters, right? So the usual way it goes is either is a compilation of a bunch of different stories, or the more typical way that you would see it is there would come out 8 chapters of a shonen on Shonen Jump, right? Shonen, like, let's say JJK, every month. Is it every month or is it every week? Every week.
Week. Let's just say week.
Let's say week.
We do our research.
Yeah, we're fantastic. So whenever the serialization occurs in the time period, because there are monthly tankobons, I know that for sure. Once they compile enough content of a certain series like JJK, then they come out with a volume of JJK, and that is basically the end result of tankobon. Now,
yeah, that's why, like, if you ever look at a ongoing manga series and look at their Wikipedia entry, usually it'll be like volume 1, chapters 1 through 9, or something like that, and then volume 2, volume 3, volume 4, and then at the bottom of that particular section, it would also have chapters that are currently not serialized, meaning that these are not put in a tankobon format yet.
Yeah, but they can also be simulpub, right? So it just means that they're not compiled. So then,
essentially, they're just not like done in the standardized quote unquote like volume. So it's not like they are put together in volume 1, volume 2 yet. It's more just let's get more of these things out first, and then from a marketing and like administrative perspective, how we're going to market and put together all these chapters and sell it. Yeah, that's essentially it.
Yeah. Now, the other 2 terms, to my knowledge, is not necessarily related to anime or manga or even light novels, but it's called shinsho, which is the kanji is new book, it is new book, and these are essentially smaller paperback books. And then they said that the typical size is 17 by 11 centimeters and are commonly used for nonfiction.
Very specific. I never thought about like the dimensions of a book that needs to be released.
Well, I think light novels also has a specific dimension, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But
I mean more specifically like, because of the fact that this is not for anime or manga, but rather like it's more used for like academic works and nonfiction. I didn't realize there was a standardized format for how these books need to be put together.
Yeah, I mean, Japan, come on. They come up with all sorts of standardization. And another one is...
Without sounding condescending or whatnot, the Japanese are very much sticklers for uniformity and rules and regulations.
Which is why Gyaru is such a big deal. But okay, so bunkoban is, again, smaller paperback books, but they're usually associated with novels. They're often A6 in size, so 105 times 148 millimeters, and are designed to be more affordable. Yeah, very small. And, okay, so you might go, okay, shinsho, bunkoban, like, what the fuck does that got to do with anime and manga? Well, have you ever wondered, for example, imagine, if you will, dear listeners, you are on the Japanese rail, the JR, right? And you see a guy and with glasses, and he is, leaning on the sides, standing up, and he is reading this really small ass book, like this super small book. It's not a manga. It is not a school book. It's just really small ass book. And then you go over and you say hi, and then they do the thing where they clasp the book, and then they make that sound. Essentially, all those small little books you see, essentially is bunkoban. and it is like it is a portability. So kind of like with light novels, it adds that level of size and portability, and that's pretty much it there.
Yeah, I guess like when I was talking about how like small these books are, light novels themselves are very light. Like they're not bullshitting with the way they call like with the reason why they call them light novels. Like I've seen light novels, they are palm size. But I guess it makes sense. Like if you think back, like when I used to collect comics, when I was still into things like my Spider-Mans and my 30 Days of Nights and whatnot, those comics were huge. They were like essentially like A4 size.
Yep.
So imagine trying to read that on like the metro or a subway, right? It's not it's cumbersome. It's not super convenient for you to just have it in your backpack, pull out and read. Whereas if you were to just have a pocket-sized light novel, literally just pull it out of your pant pocket and then just read read a couple lines, put it back away. It's I guess that's what led to now people using more Kindles and e-readers and stuff like that because they're all super small. I rarely ever see anybody bring on an e-reader that's bigger than the size of their palm.
I mean, we both own iPad minis, and I use it to read manga, and it is just great.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be able to properly use like having like a full-sized iPad or tablet in general. Like I just can't really see much reason to take it outside unless of course you use it as like a supplementary laptop, like the new iPads that also have like the integrated keyboards and touchpads and whatnot. If I'm reading stuff off of an iPad mini like that, I can easily fit in my backpack, bring it on a plane and read a couple chapters, put it away, versus taking out a full ass 14-inch iPad Pro and using that as a reader. Like your arms will be tired by the end of whatever you're reading.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to skip our next entry and come back to it. And I will go into probably the most well-known not-for-profit fan convention, I would say, in the world, if not definitely in Japan, and that's Comiket. So you might have heard of Comiket before if you are into cosplaying or into doujinshis or into just anime in general and you like Japan a lot, you definitely have heard of the term Comiket. So it is a not-for-profit fan convention that is usually administered by volunteer-run Comic Market Preparatory Committee, Comiket PC. So the first one was in the 21st of December, 1975, with around 700 attendees, and it has since grown to I would say hundreds of thousands, 750,000 in 2019, and I would say even close to 1 million probably now. And it's typically held in the same location, which is Tokyo Big Sight in August and December, with the two events distinguished as Summer Comic Market and Winter Comic Market, respectively. So that's Natsukomi and Furukomi. And Will, when you've heard of Comiket, obviously.
Yeah.
What is sort of your experience with it, if any?
I mean, I've never been to it, but it is essentially one of the big days where you can just go out and do whatever the fuck you want. You got a book you wanted to sell? Go ahead. Sign up, have a stall, have a booth, and sell your doujinshis, your own creative works. You want to go out there and just, hang out with your friends and, take in the day? I mean, it's a massive cosplaying event as well.
Yes,
you don't just go there. It's not just a simple book fair kind of thing. No, people go there not just to buy, but also to just hang out, and not just hang out, but also cosplay and wear whatever the fuck they want.
And actually,
there are rules though.
Yeah, for sure.
To what they wear. So you can't have things that are too revealing. You also can't imitate actual uniformed officers. So you can't cosplay as a cop. Makes fucking sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
basically, yeah. If you go in and you cosplay, you essentially have to enter as your cosplay outfit and leave as your cosplay outfit. So there's no changing into clothes and whatnot once you get there, or you can't be wearing different things entering Comiket.
Yeah, and the other thing also again is the buying and selling of doujinshis. And for those who don't know, a group or individuals who make doujin is essentially called a circle. I'm not so sure why, but it's just called that. And what they do is they participate in each edition of Comiket. For example, I think in Watakoi, in the anime, they go to Comiket to sell the female main characters doujinshis, I think BL doujinshis. And like it is essentially a crazy convention where a lot of stuff happens, and then there is like the other female, like the short-haired female protagonist who dresses up as a guy, right? Cosplaying. So it is all typically all on the same day, everything all at once, and it is essentially a celebration of anime and manga. I've never been personally, but it is one of those things that it's just common knowledge that you just kind of know. All right. Now, going back to now that we have wrapped up with doujinshis and wrapped up with Tankoban and Comiket, I need to bring you back to the city. I need to bring you back to something. And this is something that I kind of noticed that I just kind of went and did a deep dive on, which is about anime hospitals or hospitals portrayals in anime, Will. And I'm just going to say it. Don't you think anime hospitals or hospitals portrayed in anime are all the same?
I'll be honest, I don't really watch a lot of anime that have hospital scenes, but whether or not they're uniform, it doesn't necessarily cross my mind, which I guess in a sense means that it worked. Right?
Yeah.
Like I don't necessarily notice how different or how similar they are. They're just there.
There are always white walls. There's always blue and green curtains. And for some reason, unless if it's a private room, there's always like a 3-bed room layout. And always the protagonist always gets the one next to the window for some reason, because I guess when you are a protagonist, you get that benefit, you get that advantage. Joking aside, there's also, you get, the hospital rooftop with a chain link fence, which I think is just hilarious because as someone who has worked in hospitals, not in Japan, but in like Australia and Hong Kong, you cannot go to the roof. No one can go to the roof. It is locked and sealed unless if there's a hell of a good reason. And for some reason, though, the hospital roof in animes are always like where the climax of either a love scene or some sort of dramatic kind of situation occurs, right? I mean, another example is, Erased, right?
It's I was going to say Erased, yes. Yeah. It's not just hospitals, though. Anime just seems to always love a rooftop scene.
Is it because it's like freedom to look at the sky or something? I don't know.
I mean, breaking out of confinement. I mean, it's the same thing for like a more recent example, I would say, and one that I'm very non-biased to, right? Kowloon generic romance. Anytime there is a break of monotony and all that, the two main characters always go to the rooftop or a balcony of sorts and just light up a cigarette. Yep. It's a time for them to cool down. It's a time for them to relax a little bit. But in other anime, it's also a time when you get to see your love interest get kicked off a roof and potentially die.
Yeah, that happens. So, I part of me was like, why do all these hospitals look the same? And I guess I came down to several answers, some of which I don't know if it's true or not. It's just like my take, right? The first of all, it's just realism, right? Because hospitals kind of do all look kind of generic, sanitized, always have a color palette that's, like smooth to the eye.
Public hospitals.
Yes.
Like, if we're talking about in Hong Kong, like, Prince of Wales or Eastern Hospital and whatnot, those ones tend to, have, like, the same standard hospital beds, the same weird, like, green linoleum floor. Also, like, the bed sheets are the same and whatnot. It's like, of course, private hospitals in Hong Kong, like your Caritas or your sanatoriums and whatnot, they will have, like, their own kind of style, I suppose. Not that I really get into, like, hospital interior design and whatnot, but yeah, generally, general hospitals, public hospitals will have the same kind of decor.
Yeah. So in order to portray that realism, your design and of your hospital in your anime obviously is going to do the same thing. The other thing I also think is the reason why there are constraints is because budget and time. when everything kind of looks the same. So, for example, Kyoto Animation recycles hospital assets across shows. I didn't even know that until I did some research into it. And it's even funnier because most animators haven't actually visited real hospitals, like, like to scout out locations, even though they can easily go in and, look around. But
Well, most of the time, whenever animators do go to a real hospital, it's because they're a patient.
yeah, oh, Jesus. And also Bakuman, right?
Yes.
So essentially what these animators do, because they don't scout out real locations, is, hey, this anime did this with their design of a hospital. Let me just copy that. So then everything just looks kind of ubiquitous, right? I think the other thing is when it comes to symbolism and the way that Japanese people like to portray certain symbolic values, white equals, purity and death. Hospitals are like the kind of the space where people live and die, right? And the hospital beds is always kind of like hopeful. Protagonist staring at the sky, recovering, escaping. The roof, where it's like, clear blue skies and stuff like that. And also, let's be honest, like, it is also influenced by earlier medical dramas. I think Monster is a very good example where you see a lot of hospitals because the main character, for a good segment, is a doctor or a surgeon, right? Well, it's the same thing. And again, the hospital rooftop trope, it exists because it is to be dramatic, with, like, for example, with Erased, it is on a wheelchair and then something happens, right? Or it is like in Romantic Confessions, like 3D Kanojo, there was a rooftop confession scene. A Silent Voice. There's a lot of these types of shows where they just utilize the rooftop as like a trope. So I have now figured out, in addition to everything, how to know if anime hospital is fake. So first of all, you do not see any doctors or nurses. You only see the main characters and their friends who visit them. Of course, there are plenty of shows where I think Dr. Carde is, you see tons of doctors and nurses, right? Like, so I'm not trying to throw shade on them, but sometimes there's just like empty hallways. You don't see any doctors, you don't see any nurses, and it's just like empty with the characters, and that's it. The other thing, again, it is like the video game syndrome, video game logic of, hey, you pretty much are on the brink of death, but in 3 days you are healed, or in like 2 minutes of movie time with no months and months and months of rehab or whatnot in order to recover, right? And the other thing,
but I mean, like, at that point, it's also like, how realistic do you want a hospital scene? Unless it is a medical anime, I also don't think that it's like, I don't want to watch this character break their arm and then like, oh, well, for the rest of the series, they're going to have a broken arm because it takes them that long to recover. That would just be a bit sort of like disassociative.
Yeah, that for sure. But nonetheless, it is some sort of leap in logic, right? And the other thing I always call the bandage aesthetic. So it's like when you have a head wound, you just wrap around like a mummy.
Yes.
But apparently that's all you need, right? You don't need anything else. There's no blood. There's nothing. It's just like, I'm just going to wear this headband to indicate that I am injured and I'm severely...
Not even headband. Imagine like you get like a deep tissue scar. Oh, let's just wrap this up in a Band-Aid. Like, not even a Band-Aid. It's like the typical like white... sort of like it's supposed to be cloth or whatnot. Who knows? It just looks like paper. You just wrap it around, done, all good. No need for sutures and stitches and whatnot. You don't need to come back and clean the wound. You don't need to take out your stitches and whatnot. Just wrap this around and you'll be fine in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
You could have a concussion and it'll still wrap your head in the bandage.
Oh
it's
my
like,
god,
no,
yeah.
This is an internal injury. I don't think a Band-Aid over my head is going to fix my shaken brain.
Or as Brooklyn Nine-Nine Jake says, hey, all the bleeding is internal, so I'm okay. that kind of thing.
It's funny that you bring this up because of your medical background. I feel like it makes absolute sense when you be a stickler for why hospitals are presented the way they are in anime and manga.
Dude, and they need that, like the what's it called, like the PA systems, like, dude, code red, and it's like, dude, doctor in the third office. You need something like that where it's just.
See, the thing is, like, I've been to hospitals plenty of times, and it's not for like anything like chronic or whatnot. It's just the fact that I've had way too many stitches on my body, plus also like surgeries on my knee and whatnot. But never have I heard over a PA system, Doctor So and So to the to A&E. Dr. So-and-so to A&E, like, no, never. You never hear that.
You get
at
paged.
all.
That's what you get. You get paged. That's essentially.
Yeah, but it's for narrative purposes, right? Like, it's not like, oh, this to have like complete realism in how a hospital is run in anime, unless your anime is hospital or medical related. I feel like they're going to have some visual or audio cues to move the story along. Otherwise, like, if it was just run the way a normal hospital is supposed to be run, it's going to be boring as shit. You're going to be sitting there, and you're not going to be attended to by a physician or a doctor immediately. No, there's other patients before you, so you're going to be waiting there for hours before you get attended to, unless you are an A&E. And then to actually be released from the hospital, you have to get signed off by the doctor. You can't just leave on your own volition. And those could take days, too, because, hey, guess what? Doctors can also take time off. Weekends, they can't do shit to you. There was one time when I got my knee operation, and my parents booked me in for December 24th.
Ooh.
Which meant that for Christmas, Boxing Day, I was not allowed to go out because public holiday. December 27th was a Saturday, and then December 20th was so I was essentially in the hospital for more than 4 days when I could have been released within 12 hours had there been an attending doctor to sign me off. But because I got booked in for a 4-day weekend, I had to stay there and wait. And can you imagine how that scene would play out in an anime? You would lose your fans within an episode. So it makes sense that they kind of just, oh, magic brush, everything is good now. Your bones, completely fine. In fact, your bones are stronger than they were before.
Yeah, we installed a new bionic arm. I mean, it just looks the same, but really, trust us, bro. It's out of this world. So yeah, that goes into why I have this obsession with hospitals and anime hospitals in particular. Now let's wrap up our Layer 2 with a subgenre of visual novels. We have a mutual friend, Will, who really likes visual novels, and I'm not 100% sure, but I'm willing to bet that this person knows, maybe not knows the definition or know the term, but they definitely know the definition, which is utage, which is also known as banquet, which is the kanji word. And the definition is a subgenre of visual novels characterized by chaotic, large-scale social interactions, often filled with dark comedy or murder mystery elements. It has an ensemble cast, high stakes, and meta humor. So the one that I always comes to mind with all of these traits is the Danganronpa series, right? Where you play through. I mean, what was the other one? I think Alice in Borderlands. I know it's not a visual novel, but it also reminds me of something that is like that, where he has an ensemble cast, high stakes. I don't know if there's meta humor in there, but
oh no, there's no humor. It's just dark and depressing.
Oh shit. Okay. Well,
I mean, for fans of Squid Game, like, yeah, Squid Game's cool, but Alice in Borderland came first.
Yeah.
And before that, Battle Royale and all that.
Yeah. And then before that, Lord of the Flies. So again, I just wanted to highlight this quickly because I used to play a lot of Danganronpa. I watched the anime. It wasn't that great, even though I would say it's pretty faithful. I also do the Zero Escape series, so it's like the 9 doors, 9 rooms, 9 people, virtual last reward and stuff like that. I mean, it's a long haul game that's characterized by like all of those things, and it's a fun time, but takes hours that I don't think I have anymore to afford, essentially. All right, Will, do you want to keep going, or do you want to take a short break?
We can keep going. I think it's easier to keep going simply because we're doing this remotely. It's probably easier just to keep the recording going as opposed to taking a break and then coming back. So, again, apologies that we won't have a break, but
we will get the break music. The credit, sorry.
Yes, and you can also just use the timestamps to jump back and forth anyway, so doesn't really matter. So yeah, take me down to the third layer.
The darkness. Okay, Will. This layer 3 and layer 4 is the really funny, fucked up shit that we are ready to go. Everything was all nice and cool, but now let's get into some serious business. You ready, Will?
Yeah, I don't know what I'm reading here, but yeah, take it away.
Okay, so Omegaverse, aka the A, B, and O dynamics. So the thing that I have to mention first is in Japan, for whatever reason, people really like to talk about blood types and have their personalities or their shapes of their of their conduct and their way of life revolve around their blood type. You know how people say that, oh, you have type A personality, or the thing of, oh, what am I thinking of? Astrology, like am I a Capricorn or am I a Leo and stuff like that. Well, the Japanese people are really obsessed about blood types. Now that I have instilled you with it,
okay. Excuse me.
Sorry,
there is a basis as to why there is. I mean, it's an East Asian thing, but very predominantly in Japan. This whole obsession with blood types is essentially derived from like a personality theory. It was a pseudoscientific belief that your blood type essentially dictates your personality, your temperament, and also compatibility with other people. Generally, though, like there's no medical basis for it. It's essentially considered a superstition within the scientific community. These personality theories derive from studies by a German scientist, Emil von Dergen, in which they essentially said that people with the B blood type were deemed inferior, and then these other beliefs were then sort of like published and also like more researched by another person named Masahiko Nomi. But yeah, in essence, it's pseudoscience. There's no real medical basis as to blood types dictating who you are. But I'm not here to tell you what to believe. There's already enough people that already buy into the whole blood type personality theory.
Now, in the subgenre of boy love and girl love, now let's get back to how
I do want to say,
let's go.
So within this belief, right?
Yep.
So generally, there's 4 blood types, right? A, B, and O, and then there's also positive or negative and whatnot. But we're not going to get into that much.
Do you know your
details.
blood type, Will?
I think I do. I'm either an A, B, or I'm an O. I'm either the one. No, I think which is the one that like
Universally receives.
Yes,
That's AB.
AB, right? Yeah, so I'm AB. I'm the greedy one.
I am O positive, so I think I am the I think O negative is universal donor, so I'm like the second universal donor, which is perfect. So if I'm ever in need, I can rely on you, Jason. But I ain't giving you shit. Well, it's fine
because if I give you my blood, you will die.
Yeah. So let me help you. Let me help you, man.
So based on that, then, right?
Yeah.
So personality, people with type A blood are generally friendly and kind, but also obsessive and anxious. People with type B are spontaneous and creative, but can be selfish. And people with type O are confident, but they're stubborn and aggressive. And in an extension of this sort of idea, people with AB are a mixture of the stereotypical A and B traits, while also being seen as mysterious or aloof due to relatively low population in Japan. So the minority types B and AB are more likely to be negatively stereotyped than the A and O blood types.
And it's funny because that actually gets into what we call the Omegaverse. So, the A, B, and O blood type is actually morphed from a subgenre of BL and GL into what they call alpha, beta, and omega, with, again, pseudo mating dynamics. Okay,
and pseudoscientific bullshit again.
Yeah,
but yeah, hey, I'm not saying that this is all dumb and whatnot. It exists for a reason.
It is kind of dumb though. Will I have to lie?
Yeah. Okay. All right.
But okay. So what is this ABNO? So it is these stories, usually romance oriented, where there is the alpha who is dominant, aggressive, and often quote unquote is mates with the omegas. Usually get the betas, which you sometimes would see as a normal person with no special traits whatsoever.
They're NPCs.
Yeah. And then you get the omegas. So essentially they're the submissive one and they can go into heat. And Will, I did not know this. Did you know that there is a subgenre of boy love where it's about male pregnancies?
Yeah, I do.
I didn't know
not necessarily within BL, but there's definitely a weird kind of breeding subculture.
Yeah. And
yeah,
so
it's crazy. I don't want to get into it
because
I don't watch or read that stuff, but I know that there is a little circle down somewhere in some level of fucked upness that like really wants to see men get impregnated by men.
Yeah. To be clear, male pregnancy is the thing that we are more like weirded out by, not two guys being in love or having sex. Like,
dude, if men want to fuck men, that's fine, right? Like, I don't really give a fuck where you want to, do your thing. It's more just the fact that biologically it's a bit weird. But then again, once we start getting into like, men can't get pregnant and whatnot, like I feel like we're opening a can of worms that you can't close. So yeah. I don't want to get that deep into it.
And usually these ABO dynamics are usually seen in Japanese doujinshis and original works because people make fan fiction and people create those types of dynamics and kind of inject their own input and their own beliefs into these characters. So it's unique because I think it mixes pseudoscience biology fantasy with people's Japanese obsession with blood types and personality traits and romance and obviously controversial stuff. But let's go from controversial stuff into cutesy animal ear territory, which is the...
Okay.
What?
No. I'm glad we're talking about furries, but go on.
Yeah. Well, actually, not exactly. Because
not exactly, but I'm being general here.
Yes. Kemono Mimi, also known as animal ears or beast ears. It is definitely a subgenre where it's characters or archetype, if you will. Characters with animal traits. Usually it is having ears or tails, but otherwise the rest of them is human, and that's it. Their key traits, obviously, is the appeal of animals and moe because it combines human relatability with animal cuteness. So, for example, Raphtilia.
The biggest example would just be the whole cast of Kimono Friends.
Exactly, right? Or Raphtilia, I think, with like, or no,
her raccoon ears, yeah,
and Spice and Wolf with like the ears, but then other than that, and the tail is just a girl, a lady. So there are different subtypes. There's the Neko Mimi, which obviously Neko means cat. There's Inu Mimi, and there's Usagi Mimi, meaning rabbit. And I would assume that cat dogs and rabbit girls are considered probably the most common variations of the Kemono Mimi. I mentioned Spice and Wolf. There's Nekopara, which that show.
Yay, Nekopara.
Yeah, I don't know, man. But unlike,
I'm a degenerate, but I'm not that degenerate.
Or what was it like? Interspecies reviewers must have something on there, right? I don't know.
Yeah,
but
yeah. When I said furries, of course that was like that was obviously. Yeah, because it's there obviously is some relation to it in the fact that there are sort of like obsessions of animalistic features on a human being, but rather than going on like full furry, I assume from here that Kimono Mini is more sort of subtle. It's more just like it's a human but with raccoon ears or with rabbit ears and whatnot, as opposed to just yeah.
So. Unlike Western,
I think it's just an ear obsession. I mean, why else do you think we're obsessed with
or
elves?
A tail? I guess it's ear or tail. I think usually, right?
Yeah.
Maybe
Occasionally you might
eyes?
see maybe I feel eyes are way too subtle though.
Like
But definitely
animal
like
eyes? I
yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, I think it's still very much like I mean to tell the difference between like a rabbit eye versus like a human eye, it's way too subtle. I think it's just more like they want to be subtle, but they also want to know full well that this person has animal ears, right? Like that, like they're not being that subtle.
Yeah. And it is, again, different than Western furries because I would assume usually it is more. I mean, it's like Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, right? She, other than her horns and her tail, is just looks like a regular woman, right? So rather than a full-on fursuit that looks like an animal but a bipedal animal, right? So Kimono Mimi is essentially caters to that kind of preference. I think is the best.
I'll just say it. It's for gooning.
Okay, there you go.
It's for the gooners. Come on,
Yeah.
let's be real.
Yeah, I didn't want to say it, but hey, we're on.
I mean,
we're on
I
layer
love me some
3.
Kobayashi. I love me some Kobayashi as well. So it's not like I'm being hypocritical or whatnot. No, like I can goon.
Yeah, hey, goon all you want, guys. No issues here, and gals. But let's go into.
I think that's the thing.
Yeah.
With regards to gooning, Japan is a land of opportunity for you to get your freak off.
Hey,
Just do it. They'll have whatever you want, and we will not judge you.
no, they really don't. Yeah. So, especially when it comes to judging, let's go into our next entry in the Darkness Layer 3, which is Nakige, also known as the Crying Games. Now, this is defined as a visual novel genre designed to emotionally devastate players, often through tragic romance or family drama.
Yo, like I've talked to you about this before when we were doing a BP, and I was looking up on r/anime the kind of people that generally ask for anime suggestions and whatnot, and there is an overwhelming amount of people on r/anime that ask, suggest anime that make me cry, that give me depression, that make me emotionally wrecked. And I'm like, wow, dude, like, why do you need that kind of trauma porn, dude? But it's apparently a massive thing. And I mean, look, I've definitely watched a lot of stuff that would make me fucking cry, dude. Like, Anohana, best thing ever. Clannad, very much up there as well. No Lie in April, that shit will fucking destroy you too, right? But it's not like I necessarily need to go and find something that will emotionally wreck me. No, it's more just there's a reason why this anime is so good, and I want to find out. And whilst it does make me cry, I also think it's just really, really impactful and really good to watch. It's not a fun time. I never said that, but it's definitely an experience that I don't think I would ever be able to replicate.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I did it. But I feel that there are people out there that just want to have a bad time.
A good time of a bad time, right?
Yes.
So the key traits, obviously, as Will mentioned, is emotional catharsis, which essentially by crying, right, by being very emotional, you essentially is an outlet. So it's kind of seen as a positive because obviously, as Will said, people actively seek for it, right? Takopi's original sin says hi. But anyways, the other thing also is the contrast of the moe design. I think, what was it recently? There was a anime, I think last season, called Summer Pockets or something.
Yes, Summer Pockets. That was also another VN.
Yeah, and obviously Clannad has the various branching paths, right? The different endings. And those are often seen as like different outcomes with obviously debates between which one is the true route.
Let's just say that is like a key component of what makes a visual novel developed by Key. Right? Anything like Canon, Clannad, Air, Summer Pockets, they're all going to have diverging paths. They're all going to have crazy sort of like emotional bonds, more often than not, like more depressing than anything. But you're going to have a hell of a good of a bad time.
I mean, personally, I watch some of these shows and they're great. They really are.
They're great, but they have a really crazy obsession of just making sure that like someone dies
or someone suffers.
And the player of the game has to suffer,
and you have to see it all, right? And it's bared all to see, right? So
yes,
that is Nakige. Now, Will, we have descended down into the abyss, the darkness, and I have I have definitely made sure that I picked 4 things that are just
Motherfucker,
the
dude.
weirdest shit. Okay? I needed some sort of way to kind of surprise you and also make you feel like, what the fuck, Jason? Because here we go.
This is not what the fuck at all. I'm all for it. I've read the first one. And I kind of have an idea on how the rest are gonna go. So
Okay.
don't lay it on. Well, don't lay it on me because I don't want you to lay on
like
me
literally,
the next
right?
thing.
But
yes, don't do that to me.
figuratively. Yeah, I got you. So Nakadeshi and its important non-hentai context, even though you could take it into the hentai context.
Nakadashi. Yes. If I mention gooning over Kimono Mini, no. This is the real goon. This is goon juice right here.
Yeah. Oh Jesus. Okay, so Nakadashi is a term originating in Japan, meaning adult media. Again, a hentai, eroge, AV, referring to the ejaculation inside a partner without contraception. In plain English terms, it means cream pie. Okay.
Yes.
The literal meaning means naka.
Stuffing that baby batter and all that.
Yep. Nakadashi is naka for inside and dashi for release.
Which is insane because dashi is also like the base of like a Japanese stock.
Yep.
So
and naka is essentially middle.
We're about
right?
to make some nakadashi soup.
Woo!
Right here.
All right, but despite its explicit origins, Nakadashi as a trope has appeared in either non-pornographic or like softcore contexts. So, for example, reincarnation Nakadashi. In isekai, protagonists often die and are reborn inside a new world, mirroring the physical release into like a new world, like a newborn baby metaphor, right? A plot device where a character is reborn mid-story. For example, Mushoku Tensei. I'll just say that, right? There is also the power transfer trope. So things like, for example, the Dragon Ball Spirit Bomb, right? You know, you kind of hold the Spirit Bomb for like 15 episodes and then you release it and then it's like, wow, big craziness, right? The other thing that I think is the more relatable, if you will, term is the foodgasms, right? Like food wars. Like the moment you eat the food, you essentially go into another plane of existence. You know, like I don't know how else to say it other than if you've seen Food Wars, you know what I mean by foodgasm.
Oh, they be coming.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They be releasing some juices. You know what I'm saying? So, but apparently, in business and tech, there is in Japan, it's also an actual non-hentai, non-pornographic thing. Nakadashi marketing, which is slang for embedded advertising, subliminal advertising, essentially product placements. Or it's subliminal advertising because it releases inside to your mind, like Inception, right? And then there's software development, the Nakadashi code, which is essentially, I can't believe this, is messy programming where data is dumped into a system without cleanup. Will, do you have any comments on this particular software development Nakadashi code?
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially writing code without properly testing it, so you aren't trying to see if there are any ways of your code being prone to generating errors, whether or not it will create any sort of error in connections. So you're trying to load something up, but it's basically the whole thing of, oh, if it works on my PC, it definitely works on your PC. Not knowing that that's not how tech works. Just because something works on your computer does not necessarily mean that once you release it onto a server, it's going to actually run the way you want it. So it's not gone through proper UAT. You haven't essentially connected everything correctly. You aren't taking into account maybe API usage if you are trying to, get data from somewhere. Like you're just basically stuffing something into something and hopefully it works. Hence the Nakadashi.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everything is porn. That's what I'm getting from here.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Everything.
I mean, to be fair, though, it's like another term that people love to use within the world of AV, adult media, hentai, eroge is bukkake.
Yeah.
But but like in the non-porn terms, bukkake is actually a type of udon. In which you pour a broth over noodles, hence why people now use bukkake as a way of pouring goon juice. Yeah.
So
Let's just be real. Like we're all just horny as fuck, and we just need to be able to release. That's what we're trying to do, man. We're all gooners.
Yeah, we're releasing an episode right now, and we're releasing. We're going.
Do not say that. We are not Nakadashiing our listeners.
Okay. But
do not that fuck you, dude.
But you do know what's next, Will, which is I can't talk about Nakadashi without mentioning probably in like the lewd pornographic
the most recent crazy phenomena, ahegao.
Yep. Ahe meaning sound, gao meaning face. So
no, ahe meaning moaning sound specifically.
Sorry. How should I go into this? Essentially, ahegao is a tag that is a particular facial feature. Essentially, when your eyes roll back or you essentially you orgasm
and your mouth do that thing as well.
Yeah,
so
the tongue thing. Yeah, your mouth do that. Yeah, so it is drawn in doujinshis, unsurprisingly, as exaggerated ecchi reactions. It's obviously a hentai staple that is popularized by none other than our favorite anime of all time, Bible Black, in the 1990s.
Gotta shout out Bible Black once every 10 years.
We need to, man. And it wasn't until I think the 2010s when it started getting on 4chan, Reddit, and now, I mean, if you Google ahegao hoodie, you know what I'm talking about. Like don't pretend you don't know. All right.
I mean, it's the standardized uniform of the gooner.
Yep. I mean, there's even fashion shows that use ahegao, and I don't know if it is like fetishizing exploitation, but I would also say it's just kind of hilarious, like shit posting, trolling.
I mean, it's poking fun at a porn term and normalizing it in a way, I suppose, right? I mean, like it's shock value is what it is, right? Like if you were to just see some dude walking along with a hoodie and there's like a girl on his hoodie, you know, in the midst of an orgasm. It's of course like you're not wearing it because it's fashion, you know, they're wearing it because it's, you know, it's
provocative,
it's viral, it's provocative, it's absurd and whatnot.
Which then ends up being a form of fashion. Yes. Now, Will, ahegao aside, right? We have tackled a number of different subjects and a number of different settings. One thing that I have discovered is the ultimate goon is feet, legs, thighs. And
Yep.
I'm going into our top 2 Abyss entries for our Quad T Iceberg 2. Let's start quads. Let's start with Socks and Animation Studios.
That kind of ties into, you know, when I was talking about the Kogyaru, how the Ministry of Foreign Affairs essentially kind of standardized a new type of fashion with like the knee-high socks and whatnot. It's everywhere, dude. Yeah. Anytime you go to Japan, you just see someone wearing, you know, a schoolgirl outfit and their socks be high and their skirts be high, and you know what you're focusing on. It's them legs. It's always them legs.
But one thing I did not know is the focus on the socks themselves and how I can't. Again, I'm going to say I can't believe this again. Different studios, animation studios, actually has distinct signature styles of socks. So everyone likes KyoAni, Kyoto Animation. Apparently their signature style is subtle like fabric wrinkles and a soft squeeze on the thighs. So, for example, Tabia wool blend socks apparently is like the thing that they go to for reference. And I give you an example. So, Keion Yui Hirasawa has her socks sag just enough that it kind of feels like a give, like lived in. So that's the KyoAni lifestyle, and that's how they see socks apparently. Then let's go over to the Monogatari series, Madoka Magica series, with Shaft, Studio Shaft. Their signature style is quite different. They're ultra tight socks with unnatural sheen, I guess, to to symbolize like eroticism, right? Because everything is, panty stocking, garter belt tight, So their go-to stock reference is like sheer nylon, I guess, right? Like they're the Miru tights kind of thing. And Nadeshiko Sengoku in Monogatari series, I swear on my life, it is so uncomfortable that when she does that scene where her socks look painted on and like they remove the socks in a very provocative way, I'm just like, I know exactly what you're doing, bro. No, but fine. You have a very good story and good character, so I'll stick. Now, Ufotable, who did the Fate series Demon Slayer, they have a signature style. They do a hybrid 2D, 3D socks with physics-based wrinkling because, of course, they have to go out of their way to make sure everything looks fucking fantastic.
Man, you got to stop at some point, man. I can hear the listeners gooning over this shit.
Yeah, well, guess what? Your guys.
I did not realize that the last section was just straight up goon. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, extreme like realism in terms of how like socks crease, string movements and whatnot, right? Like that's their bread and butter. Ufotable is very much into, everything physics based.
Yeah. Gainax, who did Evangelion Gurren Lagann, as you might suspect, is like over the top sock bulges, right? Like in the 1990s, because I guess that's when Gainax obviously was still a studio, and they obviously always defy gravity because that's what they do. And that goes into Studio Trigger, Kill la Kill, and Little Witch Academia, where it's like kind of cartoonish socks with zero realism, and it essentially just is drawn very absurd-like. And that apparently is like these distinct features that people have noticed of animation studios and socks. Like out of nowhere, they're just into socks.
I mean, it's not necessarily out of nowhere. I think it's just something that I've noticed within, I guess, like everyday wear and fashion in Japan. This is not just Japan too. I think it's just like East Asia. Like you'll see it in Korea, you'll see it in China as well. You see it in Hong Kong, where you don't necessarily see a whole lot of cleavage, but you definitely see a lot of legs.
Yeah.
You got to flaunt what you got.
Yeah. And
that's essentially it.
And I guess animation studios also flaunt what they got too when it comes to designing socks.
I mean, they know, like, what people want. That's essentially it. Let's not beat around the bush here. Like, we know what they're doing.
Now, I'm
surprised you didn't talk much about. Well, to be fair, it's not necessarily a stylistic choice of JC Staff, but there's definitely a lot of sock action in like Railgun, for example.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
There is a lot, but it's also like it's not necessarily a specific style that JC Staff go for, just because of the body of work that JC Staff has is so varied that you can't necessarily say that like this is the way that they do socks or they do a specific thing. Like they've literally done every single genre to an extent. So it's really hard to pinpoint specifically the JC Staff style of socks, even though I never thought I would say that in a sentence, the style of socks in animation form.
But, Will, in animation form, I'm about to give you the golden ratio in what is called Zettai Ryoiki, known as absolute territory. It is apparently a trope that focuses on the sacred space of exposed thighs between knee-high socks and a short skirt. This is something that anime people have gone very in-depth on, to the point where I found, according to the internet, an ideal skirt socks gap ratio of 4 to 1 to 2.5 of skirt, thighs, and socks. I have no idea that people have gone so in-depth into it. And of course, dear listeners, you can't see this, but Will, if you scroll down, there is literally a flow chart of all of these different like decision trees that leads to what is the most ideal length and ratio for all of these proportions. And apparently,
the lengths that people go to just to realize their fantasies and whatnot, man, like I applaud the dedication, but go outside and touch some grass.
yeah, or smoke some grass. I don't know. But
Yeah, dude, they're probably smoking. They're probably smoking that herb right now, like writing this flowchart, dude. Like this is insane. I don't want to go into it yet. Go on, talk more about this golden ratio of thigh gaps and whatnot.
I mean, the shock factor is that this thing exists and there is a golden ratio. That's sort of where I'm trying to go with this. There really isn't anything. It's sort of like, have you seen fantasy armor? To like use garter belts, sporty look, knee-high socks, all that. I can go on and on about different examples and the symbolism. But at the end of the day, one thing I just want to highlight in the abyss, the dark, deepest depths of the Iceberg 2, they found a golden ratio for the thigh gap, the sacred space.
The ideal skirt to sock gap is 4 to 1 to 2.5. So 4 parts skirt, 1 part thigh, 2.5 parts sock. And that is supposed to represent the most ideal amount of thigh shown. I guess in a way, hey, it's body positivity and whatnot, more appreciation of that thick, rather than having girls that are just, straight, SpongeBob legs. But it's obviously just more eroticism.
And if you can't show cleavage, you got to show them legs, and that's how it goes. And that's the Iceberg in a nutshell. Will
no, but like I really gotta ask, right?
Yeah,
like
please do.
You know full well that anime in itself, especially the majority of anime being shonen or more targeted to young boys, young men, and whatnot. Are we just perpetuating? I mean, obviously, anime itself has that sort of negative stereotype in which that it's just softcore goon material. But with the way that you see all these subcultures and tropes pop up, particularly with the Zettai Ryokiki, with the socks and the ahegao and whatnot, are we not just perpetuating that stereotype and making it harder to break from that shackle?
I think it's gone to the point where it's like the chicken or the egg. Like I can't tell anymore how or if we need to break that cycle. I don't know who inspired who.
Like you're saying that we're in too deep now.
Yeah, we're in the abyss, bro. When you
fair
stare
enough.
into the abyss stares back at you, apparently at your thighs. So
with the ahegao and whatnot,
it was in the dark. You can't really see, but trust me, they were doing that face. And we're
people
gonna
shooting
Nakadashi
shots
all
and
over
whatnot,
each other,
yes.
right? Okay.
God damn. All right. See, I was perfectly fine talking about, murders and unalivings and whatnot in my icebergs. I don't know why I'm so shocked to be reading this. I'm not even shocked, to be fair. I'm more just disappointed that this is what we've resulted, our fascination of anime and manga into, in the fact that, it's, we're all just horny people wanting to see some shit.
Whether it's 2D or 3D, we don't judge, right?
Yeah, yep.
All right. Will, any parting thoughts before wrap up this episode with housekeeping script?
I mean, this was a pretty hard-hitting descent. I mean, talking about storyboarding and simulpubbing, and then also how book formats are in terms of releasing manga and light novels, and talking about anime doujinshi conventions, to straight up talking about animal ears and making people cry, and then coming in people and making them ahegao whilst admiring their thigh gaps and whatnot. This was a very heart drop, dude. This is harder than Icarus fell, dude.
Well, while we try to get closer to the sun like Icarus did, we thank you all for listening to this episode of the Good Anime Palette podcast. If you want to, we greatly appreciate you leaving a ratings or review on your podcast listening platform of choice. If not, it's all good. Thank you for listening nonetheless. Will and I would like to apologize for our intermittent release lately. We just had a lot of personal stuff that we have to deal with. Will came back from Canada, So like we were just really busy, so that's why everything had to be pushed a bit, delayed a bit, but now everything should be okay for the most part. If you want to tell us how wrong we are, though, you can always contact us through our email, gapalette@gmail.com, GAPALETTE, all lowercase, all one word, using the handle @PaletteGood, capital P and capital G, all one word. We also have a website. We encourage you to check it out, www.goodanimepal.com, all lowercase, all one word. Music credits for this episode is Waste My Love by Henyao for our intro music. Our break music is Purple Clouds by Sara, the Illstrumentalist. And our outro music is Those Monsters, Do You Feel It, the instrumental version by Oi and NBHD Nick. You can always support the music artists that we feature by listening to them on Spotify, Apple Music, or your music listening platform of choice. And Epidemic Sound provides all of our royalty-free music. If you're interested, you can sign up using the referral link in our show description. Terms and conditions apply.
What a wild journey. I did not expect. I mean, did I expect? I mean, if we're talking about like tropes and terms in anime and manga, like this wouldn't be remiss at all.
You know, I'll get into some degen shit eventually, right? Like,
yeah, it's true.
Like, all the good stuff gets taken. You're left with the dredge, the degen, the toxic chemicals, the thing that makes you go high and apparently go all over the place. So that's what I did.
Yeah. Without generalizing, we're all gooners.
Yeah. I don't know what else to say to that other than yeah.
Yeah. So, hopefully you enjoyed listening to us goon over goon terms. Goon on, gooners. Catch you in the next episode.
Peace.